You're listening to the weekly Parsha Podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel, 5780, 2020. This week, we don't have a Parsha. It's going to be Pesach. I just wanted to share with you a thought about Pesach, which I think is very much connected with the experience you're all having. And I think that we need to understand what's going on. And in my personal opinion, I believe we're really close to the times of Mashiach. And I'm sure a lot of people are saying it. But just wanted to understand there's something fundamental that goes on with the advent of Mashiach. I mentioned that last week's podcast has to do with Gog and Magog. And there's a deep idea, a deep thought that I once shared on the Parsha Podcast. It's also in my Sefer, Perfectly Imperfect. And it has to do with what happens in a time of revelation. What happens in a time when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing himself to the world. And I want to preface the idea with a few questions that have to do with Pasha Pshat, simple understanding of a gemara. There's a gemara in Rosh Hashana that says Be'arba Prakim Ha'olam Nidain, that there are 4 times a year when the world is judged. We know, of course, that on Rosh Hashana there's a judgment. But the Gemara tells us there are 4 different times when there's judgment. Pesach al on Pesach, we're judged in regards to Parnasa, in regards to our the grains. On Shavuos, there's a judgment in regards to the fruits. And as far as how much rain we're going to have, that's determined on Succos. So that's why we have the tefillah of Geshem on Succos. That's why we know that there's an aspect of before Shmini Atzeres, on Hoshana Rabbah, there's an idea of a Yom Hadin. We wear a kittel. The Chazan wears a kittel by Musaf. And each of the 3 Chagim, we have a din, we have a judgment. And of course, we also have a judgment on Rosh Hashana. But interestingly, all of these judgments have to do with Parnasa, with our livelihood. And the livelihood has to do simply with our sustenance in this world on the simple level, but also has to do with our ability to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem put us in this world. And therefore, we need to be able to live here in this world. We need to be sustained. And the sustenance that we get is provided for directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from Hashem. So when there's a judgment about our sustenance, it's a judgment, we see it on an outer level. We see it as, this is how we're being sustained physically, the parnasa that we have, how much money we have. But it really has to do with our relationship with Hashem, because Hashem is the one who gives us our parnasa, gives us our livelihood. And if there's something happening with our livelihood that's broken, if there's something happening with the shefa in the entire world, like today, there's something going on, there's something broken about it, it means that there's something happening in Hashem, the way Hashem relates to the world and brings his shefa, his sustenance into the world. So it's important to understand, this is very fundamental. There's a judgment that happens on Pesach, and on Shavuos, and on Succos, and on Rosh Hashana, of course. And it's also important, think about it, in Mitzrayim, what were the things, besides for the fact that we have the Magas B'chayres, where the people, the oldest died, and we had other things, the Shchin, which happened to the people themselves, but the Barad, and the Arbe, and there were a few of the first Makkah of blood, all affected directly the sustenance, the food of the Egyptians, because that has to do with our physical ability to be sustained, has to do directly, it corresponds to our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when Hashem brought these plagues upon the Egyptians, it was to show that they are disconnected from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it was to show that Hashem is still connected to the Jewish people, which was why the Jewish people were not affected by those plagues. And that's ha'ara to understand what's going on on Pesach, to understand what's going on with the plagues, what happened in Mitzrayim. But it also helps us to understand what's going on today. But the question that I have, the question that bothers me, as we read this Mishnah, and we hear that Pesach, Shavuos, Succos, Rosh Hashana, these are times of din, these are times of judgment. So we're used to thinking about the judgment insofar as Rosh Hashana. We know it's a day. It's a day when we're in shul all day. It's a day where it's a subdued day. It's a day when we don't have the same level of joy. Perhaps we certainly don't say Hallel, but we don't think of Pesach and Shavuos and Succos as a time of din. We don't think of it as a time of judgment. What is the idea that Pesach is a time of judgment? If anything, it's a time when we're doing extra mitzvahs. We have the mitzvah of matzah, the mitzvah of maror, we have a mitzvah of simcha, of joy. On Sukkot, Shavuos, special mitzvahs that we have on those times. The Karban HaOmer we have on Pesach. We have the Bikurim on Shavuos. We have on Sukkot. We have the mitzvahs of Sukkot, and we have the mitzvah of Lulav and Esrog. It's a time of joy, of simcha. Yisa Ach Sameach. A time of din, a time of judgment. How does that coincide with the regalim, with the times of joy, the times of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What's the idea behind this din that goes on Pesach? So in order to understand it, this is what I mentioned at the beginning. In order to understand it, this vort that I wrote in my sefer, which I said many years ago on the Parsha Podcast, we've been doing these Parsha Podcasts for close to 13 years, Bezrat Hashem, towards the beginning. So there was a deep idea which I was zeicha to understand, because really when we ask questions, the more we ask questions, which is of course what the Pesach Seder is about, the more we ask questions, the more we ask questions, the more we begin to understand. Because the questions always unlock and open up a deeper understanding of something that's going on, because there's always a depth, especially of course in the Torah, but there's always a depth. If we look at reality, if we look at what's going on in the world, and we ask questions, we start to see that there's something going on, because every single thing is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now the question that I had, powerful question, Avraham Avinu, he's sitting by the opening of his tent, he just had his bris, he's waiting for travelers to pass by so he can do chesed, he can have orchim, he can have guests. Now when did this story happen? So our Chazal tell us that the story happened Pesach time. It was Pesach. And the Torah tells us that Hashem took out the sun from its sheath. And there's other places in Tanakh or in Chazal where we find that Hashem takes out the sun from its sheath. We'll see what that means soon. But Hashem sent these malachim, these angels, to inform Avraham Avinu, first of all, to heal him from the bris. Second of all, to inform him and Sarah that they're going to have a child. And third of all, they were to come to destroy Sodom. Those same malachim who were there to do that, they were going to go to Sodom, save Lot, and overturn Sodom, destroy Sodom. And the question that I have, the question that bothers me, which needs explanation, which opens up a tremendous deep insight, why was it the same malachim? Why was it the same malachim? Why during this entire description of the fact that Yitzchak is about to be conceived? Why at that moment was it that those malachim were to go and destroy Sodom and to save Lot? And Avraham Avinu has a conversation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu to save Sodom. Hashem says basically no. Why is all of that happening at the same time? Why is it at the same moment in history that Sodom is being destroyed by the same malachim who came to inform about the imminent birth of Yitzchak Avinu, of Isaac? What is the connection between these two cataclysmic events, powerful events? Now, the foundation over here is an amazing idea. It says Hashem is Hoitzi Cham Min Artikai. It says that in the future time, it's also gemara Rosh Hashana, that in the future time, there's going to be a Yom Hadin Agadol. There's going to be a great day of judgment. It's not clear if it's talking about right before Mashiach, or it's talking about in the year 6000, right before the times of Olam Haba, the future world. Right, we still got another 220 years or so until that time. But there's going to be a din. Hashem is going to take out, as it were, doesn't say, I don't think it says the word the sun out of its sheath, but it takes out a spiritual light. It takes out the true light which is behind the sun, which gives sustenance to the world. Here's that word sustenance again, which is really Hashem himself, as it were. Hashem's light, as it were. He takes out that light, and two things happen. This is what Chazal say. Two things happen. The tzaddikim are nenem miziv hashchina. The righteous ones, they enjoy, they get a benefit from the light. They get warmed, they get enjoyment, and they get amazing spiritual enjoyment from the light of Hashem that's revealed. But the Rishaim are burned. The Rishaim are destroyed by that very same light. The very same light. It has the opposite effect on the tzaddikim as on the Rishaim, the righteous and the wicked. And we see that this is something which happened in Mitzrayim. In Egypt, what happened? The same light of redemption. Hashem was taking out that awesome light of redemption in order to save his special people, his Am Yisrael, his nation. And the result was what? They were lifted up. L'chol Yisrael Orbe Mashvaisim. During the darkness, the Jewish people had light. And at the same exact moment that tzaddikim, the righteous, those who are truly the good ones in the world, right? There's so much darkness in the world, we don't see the truth. But at the moment of spiritual revelation, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world, he's showing himself to be part of nature, to be part of the world, to be intimately involved in the world. At that moment, two things happen. The righteous are lifted up. Mashpil Game, Hashem lifts up the righteous and he lowers the haughty. He lowers those who are unworthy, those who are evil. The Mitzrayim are being destroyed by the light. They experience 10 makas, 10 plagues. The Jews at the same moment are being lifted up one level after another to the point where they are freed for all times. And they enter into a true relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because they were chosen. Why? Because they are righteous. Why? Because the truth is on their side. Because they are the ones who were chosen by Hashem. And a promise was made. Now, listen, this is amazing. This is so deep. It's so beautiful. This is what was going on in the times of Avraham Avinu, in the times of Abraham. Avraham Avinu there was about to be a new revelation in the world called Klal Yisrael, Yitzchak. Isaac was going to be born. Yitzchak, laughter. That's what his name means. Yitzchak means to laugh. An amazing thing. Not Sarah Imenu, 90-year-old woman, 100-year-old man. They're going to have a child. What an incredible revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Siyata Dishmai, his divine providence in the world. Unbelievable thing, miraculous beginning for the Jewish people. That's about to happen. Now, whenever that kind of light comes into the world, alongside the light is darkness and judgment. That's the rule. That's how it works. Whenever HaKadosh Baruch Hu is bringing the world into a new stage, it's accompanied by darkness. You don't have to look further than about 75 years ago. There was a tremendous darkness that hovered over the entire world. And what was the result? A new stage in the annals of mankind, unprecedented time, whether it's technology, whether it's the amount of food, the amount of human beings that have been born. There are 7.7 billion people in the world now. The result of amazing advances in science, so many things, advances in medicine, all of these things, it heralded a brand new time of sustenance from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from God, into the world, into mankind. Now, when that new stage happens, it's accompanied by a time of judgment, a time of difficulty, a time of challenge. And that's what happened in the time of Mitzrayim, in the time of Egypt. That's what happened in the time of Avraham Avinu. Sodom, they were evil. They had to be destroyed. Why? Because as Hashem reveals himself more, as light comes into the world, there's a revelation of truth. And the revelation of truth requires that the wicked are destroyed and the righteous are lifted up. And that's what happened with Avraham. Avraham was about to be lifted up. At the same moment, Sodom is destroyed. The Jewish people on Pesach, at the Exodus from Egypt, they're about to be lifted up. At the same moment, those who had done wrong, those who had behaved wickedly, they're destroyed. The evil is destroyed at the moment that the good is revealed. That's what happens. Now, on a microcosmic level, every single year, we have an awesome revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of God, in the world. When does that happen? Every single year on the Moyadim. Right? What are they called? The holidays are called Moyadim. Moyed doesn't mean a holiday. Doesn't even mean a holiday from the holy day. It is true, it's a holy day. It's a Yom Kadosh. But a Moed means a meeting. It means a time of meeting. Right? The Oil Moed, the tabernacle, the Mishkan was called a place of meeting. The Oil Moed. What's the idea of a Moed? What's the idea of the Yomim Tovim that we have? Pesach, Shavuos, Succos, Rosh Hashana. The idea is it's a time where we meet HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where God reveals himself more in the world. Why do we have these mitzvos? Why do we have the commandments? First of all, Hashem wants to purify us. But besides for that, because we're in a deeper relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with God, on these times, Hashem is revealing himself more in these times. So first of all, we need to do things to make sure we're on the side of goodness, to make sure that we're on the side of righteousness, right? Because the more HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals, there's also a judgment that comes along with it. That's what's going on Pesach and Shavuos and Succos. There's a time of judgment. It's a time of difficulty. It's a time when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking at us more carefully. So Hashem says, here, I have some ideas for you. You're being judged on Tevuah. You're going to be judged on Pesach. There's a judgment about your sustenance in regards to the grains. Bring the korban ha'omer. I want you to do something that shows your righteousness so that I can judge you in a righteous way, so that you're on the side of good, so that you receive my light, instead of, heaven forbid, the opposite. On Shavuos, we have a mitzvah. We have a mitzvah of Bikurim. Why? Because we're about to be judged on the Paris. Are we going to have that sustenance from HaKadosh Baruch Hu each and every time? It's about Hashem revealing his light. And there's a build-up between Pesach and Shavuos. If you want to understand, why was it that the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva died? 24,000 Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva died between Pesach and Shavuos. Why is this a time of judgment? If anything, it's a time of joy. It's a time of awesomeness. It's a time of, wow, we're about to receive the Torah. We have 7 weeks leading up to receiving the Torah, but it's a time of revelation. Because it's a time of revelation, it's also a time of deeper judgment. It's a time when we need to be more sensitive to others. It's a time when we need to be upping our game in the chesed department, in the area of doing kindness to others, in our ben adam lechavero, our relationships with our spouse, our relationship with our children. And I know it's a challenging time, of course, that we're living in this awesome, challenging, difficult time. And I want to mention something which I said in the Bitachon group, which we meet every Sunday. On this past Sunday, somebody asked a question, and the question is, how do we face off with this challenge? It's an amazingly difficult thing. People are dying. Thousands of people are dying of Rahman al-Islan. Hashem should save us. It's a time of judgment, of din. How do we face it? How do we deal with it? How do we respond to it? And one of the things that I said, which I heard from my Rosh Yeshiva, from Rabbi Per, is that when it comes to facing off with din, with judgment, our response needs to be quiet. We don't understand. He was once asked about in Yeshiva Faraka, where I went to Yeshiva, where Rabbi Per is the Rosh Yeshiva, so they have a Holocaust program. There was a teacher there, Mr. Cohen, so Zayin Gesund, he should be well, who was a Holocaust survivor, and he taught this program. So Rabbi Per was asked, how can we teach Holocaust studies? Should we tell the whole truth to our students? It's too awesome, it's too difficult. And he said that when it comes to something which is difficult and so hard to deal with, we need to say the truth. We can't cover it up. And we need to say we don't understand. It's so important to say, I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand why the Novominsker Rebbe passed away. I don't understand that. I don't understand why so many great tzaddikim have died. I don't understand it. I don't understand why people are passing away. It's so difficult to understand. The whole world has been thrown into a tizzy. How do we relate to that? How do we understand? We don't understand it. It's important to know that we don't understand. It's important to respect it. It's important to respect. There's a certain holiness. There's a certain kedusha that's in the place of darkness that we need to respect. And at the same time, we need to know there's a nechama. At the same time, there's a consolation. That when Hashem brings judgment into the world, it's accompanied with a revelation of his light. We can't, the mashal that I gave is, sometimes a child runs into the street. The child needs to get a patch. Now, there have been times I've given my children a patch. And after that patch, they don't want a hug from me. I send my wife or I send my daughter to give the baby a hug. In the moment of darkness, the moment of pain, we don't see how it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We don't see how it's from Hashem. But a few hours later, I can give my child, and I make sure to, because Chazal say you're supposed to push away with your left hand and pull in with your right hand. Right? You need to use your stronger hand to show love, and your weaker hand to show judgment. We can be assured that although HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pushing us away in a certain sense, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us a patch, and we don't understand why. We're that child who doesn't really relate to it. Yet we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Meruba Mida Taiva, Hashem's good side, as it were, Hashem's Mida Taiva, his good attribute is stronger than his negative side. And so we need to be assured, we need to know that just as it was in the times of Avraham Avinu, when there was a revelation about to happen, it was accompanied with difficulty for Sodom, destruction of the Rishaim. Just like it was in Mitzrayim, when it was about to be HaKadosh Baruch Hu was taking out the Jewish nation, 1.5 million people, slaves, to be freed, to be allowed to come to receive the Torah, to enter into Eretz Yisrael. It was accompanied by the destruction of the evil. And every single time we have a Pesach and a Shavuos and a Succos, there's a revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's happening in the world. And it's accompanied with a din. Are we going to be sustained? Are we going to continue to be sustained? Will we continue to have parnasa? We need to step up. We need to focus on the opportunities that present themselves on Pesach, the mitzvah of matzah. There's so many mitzvahs, so many opportunities for chesed within our homes. We need to step up to the plate, to our challenges, and we need to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I want to be on the side of Taiv. I know there's a judgment now. I know there's a judgment going on in the world, but I also know that that judgment is accompanied by a revelation of your light. I want to tap in, and I want to be part of your light, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the side of Taiv. I want to be Zeiche in the judgment, on Pesach, through Shavuos, through Succos, and Rosh Hashana. All of these times, I want to be Zeiche. I want to merit to be in the side of good. And the way that we merit that is by strengthening ourselves, as we've said, strengthening the side of good, being on the side of the tzaddikim, being on the side of Taiv. I want to bless you and ask you to bless me. Hashem should help us to be able to face off with the amazing challenge of today, of our time, to face off and recognize that this is an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for rededication to our bitachon, our trust in Hashem, that just like He took us out of Mitzrayim, just like He redeemed us then, and just like it's always been so, that there have been times of challenge, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always there holding our hand throughout the challenge. May it be so that we also recognize that He is here with us in our present challenge, and the purpose of the challenge is in order to reveal His light, so that we can all be zeiche and merit to see the binyan Beis HaMikdash, the rebuilding of the temple, and the open revelation of Hashem in the world. That time where the verse says, Umala ha'aretz dea es Hashem, when the world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem, the recognition of His existence in the world. Kamayim liyam machasim, like the waters cover the earth. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Pesach and a wonderful Shabbos.
This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.